It's time for my final review of the Native 5 G10 15V steel sprint run from Spyderco. First, I want to talk about this clicky issue that I had. In my initial impressions, I compared it to my lightweight versions, especially this Maximate one. This Maximate one has this little click in the bottom part when I open it slowly. Right there. It's like a little bump. Some of my other lightweight ones do it too. Sometimes this one's the worst. I just want to point that out. That's where that's at. I have not reviewed this knife. When I do, I'll go further into that. Just want to make sure you guys know this knife's not doing that at all. No problem. Action on this thing's perfectly smooth. I've had no problem with that issue on this knife. I used this knife for about a week. I used it for all the normal stuff I usually do, opening boxes, packages, everything else. So first, this is just a regular kind of box. This is half a fruit box. This fruit box cardboard is way thicker than this regular Amazon type cardboard. I mean, it's very, very substantial. It is 3 layers. I like using these fruit boxes because I have to lean into it quite a bit to cut through these, and it helps me to know how uncomfortable the knife is to use. Okay. Those cuts were extremely hard. That was supreme effort. It hurt my hand just from squeezing like my muscles, but the knife actually didn't hurt my hand too bad at all. Those cuts were very, very hard. I almost could not even get through that. These cuts are very, very difficult. I'm really having to squeeze this handle very hard and use almost maximal force. I'm really groaning and grunting to try to make these cuts. So I'm this far in. I'm going to say that my hand hurts very much, but it's just from having to use my muscles. I am using almost supreme effort to try to make these cuts. And this handle is very actually comfortable. This handle is not causing me any trouble. It's just very difficult to make these cuts. I've cut all the way around top of this box. So in total, that Amazon box equaled 193 feet of cardboard cut. That's not counting the fruit box. So I'm at a point in my testing where I have done most things that I'm going to do with this knife. I just want to get a reading on where this thing is at for sharpness. First, I'm just going to judge this with my own scale of my fingers. On the non-show side with the triple B logo, there is a slight, I'm going to call it a burr because I don't know what else to call it, but it's either a burr or a rolled edge. Rolled pretty much down the whole side. It's pretty common, in my opinion, when I use knives, even to, definitely when I cut rope on a cutting board it happens, but even when I cut cardboard, usually a burr or a rolled edge will start to kind of form. This one's very slight. Definitely no longer scraping hair, but it's close. Just below the threshold of scraping arm hair. For me on my scale, that's a 4.0 out of 5. So I would give this like a, just beneath that. Still feels very sharp. Still grabs my finger pads heavily this way. Slightly less so on that side, which makes sense since that's the side that has the burr or rolled edge on it. The apex still feels quite narrow. Still feels somewhat dangerous this way, but really not much toothiness, but it's not totally glassed out either. This thing still feels quite sharp. I would give this like a 3.8. Sorry I failed to record the best test. Post-testing, the best score was 228. I'm at the end of the testing. I'm just going to try to touch this thing up. This is where sharpness is at on this catalog paper. Tiny little bit of snags if I go slow. But if I try to go a little more aggressively, it's pretty smooth. So this knife still is very sharp. I'm just gonna see if I can touch it up. So I'm gonna see what luck I have with these Nanowatt Sarah Pro stones. This is a 400, this is 800. Don't know if I'll go to this grit. If I like what this is doing, then I may stop here, we'll see. I don't even know if these stones are gonna work on this steel. I don't wanna just jump automatically onto diamonds with this thing. I know diamonds are gonna work. But I want to try to see what I can do with some more conventional water type stones. These are very good quality splash and go type stones. And part of the reason I do this is because I have been able to successfully touch up knives that are similarly dull as this and M4 and K390 on even the most basic of King 1000, 6000 stones, whatever. So we're gonna see if this works. Okay, sorry about that. I intended to show that sharpening in time lapse and I apparently failed to hit the button, so didn't record it. But this stone raised a burr on this thing very, very quickly. It was very fast, 4 to 6 passes basically. And I've just been trying to refine the burr a little bit. This is how much swarf there is from that, or load up, not a ton. Really like the toothiness of this edge right now. It is freaking awesome. But the apex just doesn't feel super, 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 super pointy. But this is very sharp. It is shaving hair. Paper. Very good. Just gonna give it a quick stropping. This is stroppy stuff, 0.25 micron. One more really light pass. This is gentle as I can do, basically, right here. All right. So I am grinning because this thing has a nice sticky toothy edge that pretend this is the edge of the knife. I have to bounce my finger along like this because I feel like even if I run my finger on there even gently, that it will cut me. That's perfectly how I like my knives. Very, very sharp. I'm very, very happy with the edge this has on it right now. So first I want to say that I have played with the Native 5 many times, handled them, fondled them. This is my first one that I have in G10. I've been a little put off about carrying them. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because they're kind of thick. Kind of thick in the handles this way. But let me just say, as soon as I started using this knife, I liked it very, very much. So I just want to point that out. I just want to say that over the time I've been using this knife, I've been very impressed with it, and I believe, in my opinion, the Native 5, it gains points when you actually start using it. So I know these knives have been reviewed a lot. I'll just go over some quick points that I found. Overall, the blade shape is very, very useful. It's got a great tip and point. This is super great for poking into stuff and doing scoring type cuts like this. The edge was very, very sharp out of the box. Spyderco did an exceptional job sharpening this particular one. I found this blade shape to be very versatile. I found it just knows where to go. It just knows what to do for me. I like the flatness up here. This jimping is great. The choil makes for a really exceptional versatility and grips. I had no problem using the knife by the handle and no problem using it by the choil. I will say this knife is slightly less slicey than other knives of the small, I'm gonna say 3-inch size. So I don't know what it was about it, but its sliciness was a tiny bit lower than what I would expect. So for the tip work, I would have given it a 4 out of 5. And for sliciness overall, I would give it a 3 out of 5. This handle is very, very comfortable. In my initial impressions, I talked about the pointiness of this area. I found this to be a non-issue. I never had any problems with this, ever, during my use. Nothing, no problem, none. I did some cardboard cutting on a fruit box that was extremely hard to cut. Cutting that fruit box was one of the most difficult things I've ever done with a folder. It was very, very hard. I don't think it was portrayed to you guys how difficult that was. I was using literally supreme effort to make those cuts, and I actually was sweating. So I was gripping this knife as hard as I possibly can. It did hurt my hand, but I think that pain was from me just squeezing as hard as I can. Most other knives that I've had to squeeze even close to that hard hurt my hand enough. I had to actually stop the cutting. So this was very, very, very comfortable. Even in extremely hard use, I would give the handle comfort on this. In extremely, supremely hard use, hard gripping as hard as I can, comfort on this handle was a 5 out of 5. So good job for that. Again, I like the variety of handle grip options. Here I have no trouble with any grip. Lots of versatility on this thing. Handle design overall is great. Comfort, exceptional. Carry. I carried this knife quite a bit in several different configurations. I have several different pants and pockets that I try when I'm testing a knife. I had no problems with this. This carried very securely. It's a tiny, tiny bit tight on the insertion, just a little bit. I think this G10 will wear in a little bit and make that a little bit less frictiony, but I had no problem with it. I had no problem getting it to go into my pocket and no problem getting it out of my pocket. I just noticed it was a tiny bit grippy, but the grippiness was fine. I had no problem with it. It actually made me feel more secure about the retention in my pocket. The only issue I had carrying this knife is that it's boxy feeling. Again, this knife is somewhat thick this way, and in my pocket it felt just a little bit boxy and hefty. Again, this is G10. It's heavier than the lightweight, but I'm just telling you how this particular knife carried. It was a tiny bit boxy and hefty feeling, but I had no problems carrying it. It was secure in all my pockets that I did. I never had issues of it trying to slide out or anything. Insertion and withdrawal was perfectly fine, no complaints. Just felt a little bit boxy and hefty. Action. So again, there's no click on this one. It's really smooth. This action is perfectly fine. Lockup is rock solid. I've had no problems deploying this, undeploying it. The closure for a lock back is fine. It's not really too drop shutty, but again, I've only used it for just barely less than a week even. I like lockbacks. It's not super fidgety because it's a lockback, but it's very secure. I have no problem with it. I actually like lockbacks. In my initial impressions, I talked about how this hole is a little bit eclipsed. Maybe more visible on that side. It's just the handle kind of covers a tiny portion of the hole, which makes it so my thumb can almost want to miss the hole a little bit. During my use, I did not have a single problem with this. Not an issue at all. I did not have a single attempt to open or deploy the knife where I missed like this. That never happened once. I never had any problem deploying and opening this knife. Steel. I'm very impressed with 15V. This knife did even better in my edge retention test than the Mannix in 15V did. 450 cuts on 1/4 inch rope and cardboard, then 70 cuts on 1/2 inch rope and cardboard for a total of 520 cuts on rope and cardboard. I found this to be extremely stable, meaning that when I use my knives for big, long jobs, typically the edge will kind of break down with flattening, smashing, rolling, bending, crushing. This knife edge stability was very good in my opinion. The front end sharpness was very, very good. I don't test my knives beyond way into super deep into working edge or really, really dulling heavily. So whatever information I have to relay to you would be toward the front end sharpness and the point to where the knife kind of stops scraping my arm hair. So this steel held up perfectly fine in that realm. I did not test it further. Other people are doing that, testing further and further and further into further dulling. I don't do that. At least I did not in this particular case. For me, the edge retention seemed very, very good. Edge stability was very, very good. Ease of sharpening. This knife was extremely easy to sharpen. I tried to resharpen the 15V on my Mannix with some basic King water stones. That was unsuccessful on the Mannix, so I didn't try it on this knife. Instead, on this knife, I tried to touch up the edge. After all my testing, I tried to touch up the edge on some Nanawa Chaucera Pro Splash and Go water stones. That worked very, very well. I was able to touch this up very quickly with just minimal passes on a 400 grit Splash and Go Chaucera, Nanawa Chaucera Pro, and then a few swipes on a diamond emulsion strop. Left a very, very toothy edge. This thing is super scary toothy right now. Shaving like crazy. I love it. I had no problems with this thing staining or anything, but I didn't do any really rusty activity with it, but it held up fine. Value. So these things are going for about $225. On all of these 15V models, they're very similarly priced to whatever the similar configuration would be for the S30V model. I believe right now the Spy 27 version in G10 is 202. This one's at 225. The S110 version in G10 is 240. So for this thing to be a sprint run and to have the 15V steel in between the pricing of those other models I just mentioned, I think this is very, very reasonable. These 15V models are very, very well priced compared to other Spyderco models. Overall, my overall thoughts on this knife are exceptional. I really, really love it. Again, as soon as I started using this knife, I loved it, and I felt like it could do so many things for me. I was very, very impressed with it. I was sad that I have not been using Native 5s more frequently. I waited so long to start using them because This is truly an awesome knife. I believe that for the smaller size, near 3-inch size category, this G10 Native 5 is a very, very good hard to harder use small EDC folder. This thing is strong. I was pushing so hard on it. This thing's awesome. I think this thing is a workhorse. This is not the sliceiest knife, but it is perfectly slicey enough and is very, very strong. I think there were a few cases where the knife felt a tiny bit handle heavy when I'm doing cuts against breaking down my soda box cardboard and stuff, doing pulling type cuts this way. The handle just kind of feels like it wants to drop this way into my hand a tiny bit. Obviously that's mostly due to the G10, probably, but so that's a neutral. Like I mentioned in the carryability portion, this knife feels a little bit thick and hefty when it's closed, which may make it slightly less carryable for some people, but you just know going into it, I guess, that that's what you're getting. If you get the G10 model, it's heavier than the lightweight. But again, you may be trading off for some strength. This knife seemed very, very strong. Overall, I love this thing. It's awesome. I would be perfectly happy if this were my only knife. I have very little bad to say about this thing. It's sharpened up easily, holds the edge very, very well, even holds front end sharpness very, very, very well. Got an exceptional result in my edge retention testing. Super comfortable handle, even for hard use. It's awesome. Love this thing, highly recommend it. Thanks for watching.